What's up, guys? Marshall Prodigies is back. In today's video, I'm attempting to go from the worst Iron Man suit, but each time I get a kill, I go up by one suit. So, for example, if I was doing shotgun, what would be after shotgun? It'd be 42, since I don't have 41. And so, or if I was starting off with 42, I go up to 43. If I die, I go to the previous suit, which that's not gonna be good. Anyways, we start with prototype. Actually, this wouldn't be fair because we don't have Jarvis on our side. So why don't we just go ahead and jump off a building while casting Mark 2. Oh, that did not work. I was trying to call for Mark Two while just falling, but it didn't work like in the movie. Oh well. Anyways, we start with Mark Two. Let's go find. Oh, we found two. Oh, three. Oh, four. Oh, five. Holy voice crack. Okay. Oh. Okay, they're dead. I just got a kill. Okay. I just killed one. So let's go ahead and find a place that's safe because I need to get to Mark 3 and I don't want to lose and I don't want to go back to Mark 2. Mark 3 is where things get interesting. I just got a kill right now, so just don't ask me how. They don't have Mark 5 because they would need the transformation for that. I've been waiting on Mark 5 like forever and there's still no Mark 5. It'd be awesome if you have like a briefcase in your hand if you could get Mark 5. And if you just click call or just call in the suit of Mark 5, it just gives out like a cool transition of a suit, like how they do in Iron Man 2. Personally, I'd say either Iron Man 3 or 2 are my favorite ones. I like Iron Man 3 and 2. 2, it's awesome. Like I like how War Machine, aka Rhodey and Tony Stark actually team up together to get rid of Ivan Vanko, who was the next Whiplash. Oh, there's another one right here. Come here, boy. He's doing missiles. Nope. Oh, you're running away. Oh yeah, let's add in an extra rule. If they don't fight back and run away, if I'm trying to kill them, then we're automatically gonna count that and to go up a suit. Because if they run away, then that shows that they're too scared to do anything. Oh, one's got Helios. Helios is so cool, but it's not canon in the Iron Man universe. It would be awesome. It's canon in the comics, but not in the universe of the real timeline for Iron Man. Why does Ironheart have to be copying everything Iron Man did? Like, and I even heard that someone said in the comments the fact that nobody likes the Ironheart comics or series is actually not that surprising because people want the OG Iron Man back. Which I get it because once when people are like, "Who is this?" Like we don't know them, but once they start getting used to it, that's when they start feeling confident, and that's when they like them. Oh, they ran away, and once they start losing them, then that's when they made the biggest mistake. Well, not the biggest mistake, but they just made a mistake that they shouldn't have been like disagreeing with that actor, and they wanted to come back. Like for example, like RDJ, Robert Downey Jr., who played Iron Man and role played as Iron Man. And they want him back, or at least the kid that protected Mark 42 and Iron Man 3 to become the new Iron Man, and not a random woman in Ironheart. And one of them did, and one of the people actually did ask a good question. mm, if Tony Stark wasn't a billionaire without a box of scraps, would he still be Iron Man without the money and engineering technology? Personally, I don't think he needs the technology or money just so that he could be considered Iron Man, because due to his genius brain, because he managed to make Mark 1 inside of a cave of a box of scraps. Box of scraps, okay? This is way beyond anything that people could have possibly built. Not even the Great Wall of China, within just a day. And the craziest part, he didn't even have Jarvis that time, because AI didn't exist back when Tony Stark was inside the cave and in the Ten Rings. Because he was never because he never had that technology or that kind of money. But once he started earning money off his suits and well, not off his suits, but like his cars, his mansion, his piano, his tutor, his butler, everything that he had just got him famous and rich. So the more he earned, then the more materials he gained, so he could build a new suit. And he only had certain like attacks that he had from Mark One. They were like flamethrower, one missile, and a malfunctioning flight, which somehow got him out of the Ten Rings prison. Not really like prison, but like prison house, prison hold house like is what I like to describe. Oh dang it, they broke it. I gotta run. And he doesn't. And so to be honest, he doesn't need the technology, but in certain missions and suits, he actually kind of does. Because if you think about it, in Avengers Age of Ultron, he realized that his suit wasn't made for space, and we all thought that he was gonna die, which that would have been bad. So he had to make a suit that was compatible enough to reach space, which that would be Mark 39, by the way. That'd be Star Boost. And Star Boost is the only suit without nanotechnology to go to space, because since it has like a oxygen tank on the back of the suit, it allows him to breathe in space. So it's not just Mark 50 or Mark 85 or Mark 1616, aka Mark 49. He just named it Mark 49, Mark 1616 because of Pepper Potts, because the P in the alphabet is the 16th letter, and since her name is Pepper Potts with two within just two signatures, then that would be it would be 1616. So he did name it. Okay, I'm on Mark 6 now. This is from I can't tell if this was just regular Avengers movie or when he had the Mark 6, or if this was I think it's pretty much sure. I'm pretty sure it's in the regular Avengers movie. Like just the original one. Like the 2012 one. Right when I was born. Mm, low power? Shoot. No, 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 no. Okay, this is bad. This is where like an Iron Man. He's just like, how do you solve the oxygen problem with just low power? 1%. No! No, 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 no. Power on. Low power. This also actually kind of happened back in Iron Man 3, not just 1. He had a power issue. Because since he flew too much, used repulsors too much, it caused him to drain his power a lot. So that was. Okay, so we're on currently on Mark 6. So we gotta call in Mark 6 quick before somebody kills me. I don't want to go back to Mark 4. All right, this is in Avengers, right? Just regular Avengers from 2012. Honestly, I think Mark 6 would be the most overpowered suit without Jarvis. I mean, to be honest, if it wasn't for Jarvis, then he'd probably be cooked because the amount of room he can see from his eyelids. You can also tell because if you buy a helmet, you can't see anything, but you can only see through the eyelids, which you have to power off or put it on red mode, which would be combat mode. It'd be much cooler if they added like a display, like a heads up display inside the helmet, so you can see everything like an Iron Man. But yeah, so I personally think Mark 6 is my favorite if it were not to have Jarvis in it. I mean, even with Jarvis, still with Jarvis, without Jarvis, with or just Tony himself, he would still need Jarvis to power on the suit. Why? Because without Iron Man 1 where he built his first Mark suit, where he doesn't have Jarvis high tech or anything else. That's because he couldn't fly. That was the issue. He didn't have an AI assistant. Not only that, but he was never trained to fly before. So that's why it malfunctioned. And for the Iron Man Mark 1 armor. And it was so heavy as well that scientists had to gather piece to connect it all back. And it took him a long time. And one of them thought it would be nearly impossible. But one of them pulls out this. Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave within just a box of scraps. Honestly, if he can do it, anyone could do it. As long as they're like trained professional engineers. But he would need Jarvis to fly and like shoot repulsors. Without the suit would power off on its own, and he wouldn't be able to do anything but just fight on hand to hand combat. So he's pretty much cooked there. And the crazy fact is that, he doesn't even need a power, just so that he could take on Thanos, which is crazy. A person who's powerless with just a suit of armor is honestly crazy. How'd you get beaten by a person who doesn't have a power like Thor or Ant Man? Well, I'm pretty sure Ant Man has like a shrinkable and growable suit. I'm sure he has like a type of technology that would allow him to shrink and grow. I have no idea what it's called in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh, hey, we got an extra kill. Finally, we can go to Mark 7. I don't know what that one growable and shrinkable like technology is called. But yeah, another thing is that Tony Stark wasn't just a genius. He was actually a real superhero than any other hero. Even if that meant that he was still not worthy to show any proof that he was worthy, come on, he's still helpful enough to help out the Avengers. Let's be honest, if it wasn't for Tony, everything would collapse on its own. Like in Avengers Endgame, and they could have lost the battle. Thanos would have snapped, kill everyone, and in Avengers Age of Ultron, the nuke would have hit New York. It would just immediately bombard them and just automatically kill everything in New York and destroy everything. So without Iron Man, there is no Marvel Cinematic Universe, like how he mentioned during that one interview of who's stronger, the big three, or Captain Marvel, Wanda, and Scarlet Witch. Honestly, this debate on who's stronger of a trio, either the big three or Scarlet Witch, Captain Marvel, and Wanda. Mm, honestly, the OG is obviously gonna win. How do I know this? This debate has everything in its ways. So let me just explain real quick. Thor, let's just say for example, Thor can't die. He took on the heat radius of a star. That shows how worthy and strong he is, just to not die. Though he almost died because he needed his hammer. Mm, but Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy made it turn into a Stormbreaker hammer, which was like, which was more of Mjolnir's big brother, if I were to put it that way. Oh, what am I running away? I could go up to Mark 8. If not, that's Mark 9. If not, that'd be Mark 10. I'm pretty sure they don't have anything. So, if it wasn't for Son of Odin, Thor would probably not be worthy at all. Because, come on, Odin can easily pick up the hammer even if he's not worthy, but the only Mjolnir requires to be worthy. If it's Stormbreaker, it doesn't require worthiness, it requires raw strength, since it's super heavy. If it's if you're willing to see if you're worthy or not, that'd be Mjolnir. But not gonna lie, both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker combined is pretty awesome. I like Mjolnir better, to be honest. I can see why Thor likes it. I can see why he likes Mjolnir. And Captain America, who doesn't have a power, is also worthy. Be- how's how's he worthy? Because back in the Stark Industries lab, where he's being tested with an experiment, where he goes inside the serum, then we see him fighting back the pain. When they say to shut off the power, mm, then he yells and tells them, "No, don't. It's not worth it. I can take it." This proves how much he's caring for the industry and lab, even if it's at 100% full heat radius. Now that's actually impossible to handle as a human without in reality. Because you can't really take on 100%. If it was 100%, that's gotta be like near like halfway the sun's heat right now. Mm, So there's no way no human can ever live by just taking that on. So so this proves how worthy he can be. And he uses his shield too, which is made of vibranium thanks to the Wakandans, which they use vibranium to create stronger suits, gear, etc. That's when he got his shield. But actually, his first shield was made um, by actually Tony's father before he was even born. Mm, so he built it out of vibranium, but in his own lab. However, when Tony Stark's father dies, then that's when it strikes him. And so once we see it in Captain America's Civil War, we see both Captain America and Iron Man fighting. However, just as Tony thought he was gonna be struck mm, on the head, then Captain America actually aims for his arc reactor because he knows that's his vulnerable spot instead of his head. Because if he did his head, that's killing a person. And he knew that it was his best friend too, so he didn't want to do either or, but he had to do the arc reactor, even though it was his weakest spot. And when Tony says, "You shouldn't have that shield. You don't deserve it. My father made that shield." He immediately drops it. Mm, doesn't look at it. He doesn't pick it back up. He leaves it scratched, damaged, and even vulnerable. just leaving Tony behind with a power off arc reactor that can power on every any type of suit he wishes to use, mm, which is honestly a big problem. The arc reactor is the only thing that powers on his suit. I thought it was just Jarvis too, but it's just that he's an AI, but he would still need Jarvis to help him out. However, in Captain America: Civil War, he doesn't use Jarvis anymore. He switches from Jarvis to Friday, which is honestly a weird name. But um, I feel like Jarvis is a better AI than Friday. Even if Friday is gentle and more calculating fast, this does not change anything. But unfortunately, he had to put Jarvis. He eventually put Jarvis to a specific danger where he eventually creates Ultron on accident, which is the worst thing. Okay, we got Mark 12. Mark 12. What's Mark 12? Ooh, okay. I like it. And of course, this happens in Avengers: Age of Ultron. The island starts lifting. And they start fighting in the beginning of the movie. It There's like an island that's floating. I don't know how. Somebody define physics for me, or just gravity. But yeah, and not gonna lie, people like heroes like Hawkeye or Ant-Man. Um, Hawkeye, he's not really that good in combat or in battle, I should say. But he is good for tactics, and he does know whenever to use his explosive. Oh, he left the game. And to use his explosive timed arrow, because when we see him firing an arrow that looked normal, Loki catches it with his hand without even turning his head. Not even looking at it. That's actually quite impressive. But just as he thought he was just getting to Asgard, he sees that it starts blinking and it blows him up. But he still didn't die, because an arrow can only hold up to, I don't know, 30 pounds maybe. So that's why there's not that much amount of explosions, because his arrow cannot contain much more. So due to that bombardment, that was actually useful for tactics. If he was very strategic and careful with using his arrows, he would actually become useful. Now with Ant-Man and Wasp, honestly, Ant-Man is gonna be Ant-Man is actually quite useful, because if he's like giant and steps on a villain, he could easily kill them like how he could with ants. Like, that's an easy win. Or if he could just secretly crawl into somebody's open skin wound, turn giant, and just immediately kill them if once he grows huge. Honestly, Ant-Man is just good for growing large and handling like giant objects like in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. However, we didn't have Ant-Man back in Age of Ultron because there was no movie about him, and it was delayed. Well, not really delayed, but let's just say he was he was never involved with the Avengers. He was not a villain or a hero, so he had no idea what was going on. Oh, there's two. Now Spider-Man. Okay, Spider-Man. There's three Spider-Mans actually. Mm, However, there's more Spider-Man across the cinematic universe. There's like millions of Spider-Mans, I think. There's like thousands or millions of Spider-Mans. So, but the top three Spider Man would be Tom Holland, which would be Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield. So, mm, so Tobey Maguire is most likely super good for stopping a train which saved countless lives. He saved countless lives, bruh. He's over here ore farming, even if it means breaking his back or ribs. He's sacrificing everything he had to save the entire city. Andrew Garfield saved 90 lives from a freaking police car that was being thrown back to him. Now, honestly, that's impressive, but to be honest, not that impressive when Tobey Maguire did it. Oh, that's three. Go ahead and use Supersonic. And Tom Holland, I mean Peter Parker. Damn, I need to get together with your names. Um, Peter Parker, on the other hand, he's learning how to make webs for his web shooters, just like in high school in Spider Man Homecoming. Honestly, I love that movie. I used to watch it all the time when I was little. I'm just going there. And Peter Parker actually does have powers, but that'll be super strength and spider sense because he can easily he can bench press like 10 tons because in Captain America's Civil War we see Peter Parker fight along with Iron Man. We see him fight against Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. Now we see him fighting Captain America and right as Captain America throws his shield to disconnect the airport's gateway, Peter Parker somehow carries still pushes the gateway, which is like 10 tons. Buddy, you are not human. Who are you? But I think that's pretty more impressive than Tobey Maguire. Wait, no, Andrew Garfield, because he can literally bench press 10 tons, 10 tons, and there's an edit of him along with the trio as well. So that's pretty impressive. I'm actually surprised because no other Spider Man was allowed to do that. They weren't incapable of doing that. Only Peter Parker was. And of course, he's got spider sense, but it only tingles whenever there's nearby trouble, and it occurs whenever his skin goes up when he sees it. And he just wanted to be like Iron Man, and he actually just became just like Iron Man. But how? Well, you see, in Iron Man 3, when we see that when Iron Man is obviously driving back home to California instead of Tennessee, Rose Hill, you can see that the kid accidentally brings up the wormhole thing, so he starts having PTSD and anxiety from it. And so he immediately pulls over, he sits down, so the kid realizes what mistake he just used. And so he decides to calm him down by telling him, "You're a mechanic, right?" And he replies, "Yes, I am." And so he was like, "So why don't you just build something?" So that gave him the idea to build something since he was still on a mission. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll definitely do that." Which, which one day later, or 2 days actually, and he he goes to a nearby store so he could buy materials that he needed. So he creates a gun full of darts, a grenade ornament, and a taser, along with an electric glove, and and even a rope that has a hook on it. And so then, 3 days later, he goes back to Roseville, Tennessee. He goes to the courthouse of the White House, and he decides to start taking down the guards one by one. And that's when he came up with the if you're nothing without the suit, then there's no reason you shouldn't have it. Mm, if you're nothing without the suit, if you're nothing without the suit, there's no reason you should have it. And so that's exactly what Peter Parker does. And since Peter Parker already had his homemade version that he made himself of a suit, he was allowed to use that one, but not the one Tony created. So when Tony took it away from him, he starts using his own, and he decides to take Vulture down, and it was his homemade suit, buddy. He's underestimating a human being that was bitten by a spider, and somehow beats him with a homemade suit that couldn't even have an AI named Karen. And so when Tony realizes what he done after underestimating Tom Holland, I mean Peter Parker. And so after he realizes what he done to Peter Parker, as he took away his suit, he decides to pick him up one day and asks him if he would like to become the new member of the Avengers. But he declines it because he didn't feel like he was ready yet. He says, I think it will be great to have me in the Avengers, but I'm probably just not ready yet. Like, I'm not ready for the level yet. And Tony was completely fine with that because he knew he needed time to rest, which he totally understood. Understanding that. So he decides to leave the nanotechnology suit, but decides to give him back his old Spider-Man Homecoming suit that he gave him in the first place to help him out. So that's when Spider-Man just became a lot more like Iron Man. If you're nothing without the suit, then there's no reason you should have it. And now there's Bruce Banner and Hulk. But what are the difference? Well, if Bruce Banner is starting to get angry and sees enemies, then that's when the Hulk comes in out of nowhere. And sometimes Bruce Banner can't contain his anger, or he can't keep control of the Hulk. Now, this is the major problem because due to everyone's debates on this, well, not everyone's, but for example, however, the Hulk is really powerful and super hard to keep control of since he's obviously getting rage baited and mad so hard that he couldn't keep it up anymore. And so if he can't contain his anger, that means he can't contain the Hulk either. So that's the problem. However, in Avengers in Infinity War, when we see him trying to get Hulk convinced to come out, he wouldn't come out. He said, I can't force him or he won't come out again. And so that was totally understandable because the Hulk needed more rage than that. But in Avengers Endgame, we see him that he's now the Hulk who's able to talk and contain his anger. And he's actually that he's almost at the Hulk strength level, which is good enough to reach. And and of course Bruce Banner does not remember Peter Parker from Spider-Man No Way Home, but the Hulk does because he wasn't in that transformation that time. Only Bruce Banner was. So that's why the Hulk was still remembering him, because he said he would never give up his hopes on Spider-Man, and, and so that way he still remembers him. And now let's move on to something much more cooler than this, Doctor Strange. Okay, this one's my second favorite person in the entire MCU. Why? Well, not really. Not only is Doctor Strange just a sorcerer who casts magic spells, he's not just like Harry Potter who needs to say the name of a spell, but he can cast magic with just his bare fingers, and it requires less movement, and mm, but it requires just less movement and just more movement and less talking. And of course, he has rings on his fingers, that way he can use and make a portal. He could um make a shield. He can use a time stone, but that's only if he uses it. If he doesn't, it can burn anyone. Just super protective, along with his buddy. I'm not for sure what his name is, but I'm pretty sure his I'm pretty sure his friend is also mm, just like Doctor Strange. And in the movie Doctor Strange, we see that he's just crying out loud, just wanting to become a superhero, but he needed to learn something at least to help protect the city. He was crying every day, all day. He was just begging every day to the point they couldn't handle it anymore. So they decided, you know what, fine, just shut up. Let us give you instructions first. So they drag him into the room and he says, thank you. And so once they get in, then that's when things start changing his future. And oh, I don't know how I could. And so when Doctor Strange finally knows magic, he decides to master it. Once he masters it, then that's when things are actually much more cooler, since he knows how to control time and space. And since he can control time with the time stone, he can either go forward into the future or he can go back in the past to see what actually happened. Honestly, that's so cool. If Doctor Strange were to be the strongest character in the MCU, I'm sure he wouldn't need the time stone just to be powerful. He would only need the rings, which he did, which it did get stolen from him in Spider-Man No Way Home, when Peter Parker uses geometry on him. I don't know how math worked on him instead of magic. You use math on a magician. How does that make sense? And next is Wanda, who is just a lot like Doctor Strange, but instead of controlling time and space, they control the future, and they control who's right, who's wrong, who's good, and who's evil. Now, Wanda has one of two phases. One of them is the evil phase. One of them is the caring phase. But what are those phases? Oh, phase number one, evil. And she uses this on Thanos because she knows that Thanos killed her family, and when Thanos tried to play it cool, and she couldn't hold back anymore. She uses full power on him, destroying his armor and his skin, trying to force him into giving back the stones, or he would die. And so there's so Thanos' co-leader decides to open fire, even if it meant that it would hit him at some point. And honestly, Thanos is just like a powerful villain. Also, this is getting boring. Let's get into the good stuff, like 42. Oh yeah. All right. Now Captain Marvel. She's she's the leader of all of the Avengers. She's super powerful, but she can't withstand the Power Stone. But the only people that